A nearby clock chimed 4 times. He had slept for 2 hours. He realised he was separated from the street only by the house opposite his window, and he felt the dim, mysterious current of life so close to him. It would be better to go outside. Down in the courtyard, 2 or 3 buzzers rang out so emphatically that Mersol went back to the window. He noticed then that an arched passageway led through the house to the street. He lit another cigarette and hurriedly dressed. As he buttoned his jacket, the smoke stung his eyes. He turned back to the sink, put cold water on his eyes, and decided to comb his hair. But the comb had vanished. He was unable to smooth the sleek, rumpled curls with his fingers. He went downstairs as he was, his hair sticking up behind and hanging down his forehead. He felt diminished even further. Once out onto the street, he walked around the hotel to reach the little passageway he had noticed. It opened onto the square in front of the old town hall, and in the heavy evening that sank over Prague, the Gothic steeples of the town hall and of the old tin church were silhouetted against a black, dim sky. Unshaven, his hair rumpled, and his eyes the expression of some restless animal, his trousers as wrinkled as his shirt collar, Mersol had lost that wonderful confidence bestowed by a well-cut suit. The light turned coppery on the gold of the Baroque domes in the far end of the square. Though it had not rained during the day, the ground was damp, and Mersol had to pick his way among the black puddles glimmering between the infrequent paving stones. A light rain started to fall. The busy streets could not be far away. Mersol was walking in circles now, and suddenly stopped. A strange odour reached him out of the darkness. Pungent, sour, it awakened all his associations with suffering. He tasted it on his tongue, deep in his nose. Even his eyes somehow tasted it. It was far away. Between the now opaque sky and the sticky pavement, it was there. The evil spell of the nights of Prague. Nauseated, Mersol leant against the post, and for a long moment inhaled all the alien solitude the world could offer him. Good morning from Prague, and I've just had my mind blown walking across the Charles Bridge at dawn without the tourists, although there were a few tourists, but it was pretty empty, and it's just a spectacular experience. So I'm just walking through this park on the way to Shooters Island, where I will start filming properly, hopefully. It's pretty quiet, shouldn't be too much of a problem. There are people about though, you know, some people have got the right mind, sense to get up before the hordes show up. So it's significantly drier than yesterday, thankfully. So I'm not slipping around quite as much. Yesterday I could barely stay on my feet. Okay, where am I going? So that's Shooters Island there, and that's where I need to be. So the reason that first drew me to this city was not Kafka, funnily enough, or its general history, but it was a 1988 music video by the Australian band INXS. It was actually shot at the end of November 1987, if my research is correct, and it is now the end of November 2025, but the same time of year as that promotional video shoot. And it just, you know, I'm not a devoted fan of INXS or anything. I can think of 100 acts that I prefer, but the song is a 1,000-year song. Never tear us apart. That's got a 1,000-year lifespan for sure. But it was the music video that really pulled me in. Just evokes certain feelings in me, certain emotions, and I've never been able to kind of let it go. It's never fallen down the back of the sofa as a music video, and it doesn't even have a special hook or anything. There's no big story elements to it. It's all atmosphere. It's all atmosphere. So pretty much the first shot is shot at the end of that island there, which is where I'm going. So there seems to be nobody down there, which is good. It's very good. A bit of peace and quiet. Just need to find a staircase and get down here. Let's see if this works. Does. So I imagine this was not here in 1987.
Přízemí. Dveře se otvírají.
Here we are. Shooters Island. Let's go and see what we can find. You know, the conditions are quite similar to the video. There is a shot actually that moves across these trees. It's a bit darker actually, but through there is, I think, one of the opera houses. You know, I am an MTV baby. You know, I spent my formative years watching MTV and VH1, and became very enamoured with the musical promotional video, which was, you know, a very big deal back in the 80s and 90s. Not so much now. I don't think really that many are made these days. But back in the 80s and 90s, music videos were, some of them were almost like religious experiences, you know. And I mean that. You know, for certain acts and certain artists, families would gather around the television set to watch the premiere of a music video, like it was the moon landing or something. This video didn't quite reach that, but it was regularly played, you know, daily at a certain point in time, daily, on multiple music channels, not just MTV, but VH1. And here we are. Wow. Yeah, this is quite a powerful experience actually. I wasn't expecting it to be so weighty, you know. It is quite moving to be here. I mean, like I say, I can think of 100 acts that I prefer more than INXS, but this music video was always one of my faves. It was one of my favourites. Just the atmosphere alone in it. It was all atmosphere. So the first shot of Michael Hutchence, the lead singer, is about here, I would say. Right there. And the camera pans round here. Camera sits here somewhere and it pans round, so it starts over here. There's two trees that are not there anymore. They've long since vanished, I imagine, but some of them are still here, I think. Yeah, so no, it was here. The two trees that were here, the roots of them are here and here. Yeah, I'm quite shocked by how moving this is. I mean, I'm not on the verge of tears or anything, but it's powerful. It's around here that Michael first comes into shot and starts singing the first verse. The track for the camera must have been along here. And he comes along here, and there's a little orchestra playing in the background. They're sat down, violinists, as there's a string section in the song. Violin players down there, seated in chairs. Mist swans, strings, and he walks across here, like around here somewhere. Yeah, I mean, it's the same but not the same, because the trees aren't the same. There's 40 years growth on the trees. Even in the video you can see they've been felling trees. There's piles of logs in the background. Looking at Old Town over here, not all of the shots were actually filmed here. A couple of the shots are filmed down there on the other side of the Charles Bridge. I'm going to head on down there. Go and find this second video location. It's actually quite difficult to explain to a young person under 25 just how important music videos and in air MTV was for us. Yeah, before the internet, music was the big deal for us young people. I would say the music industry was at least as powerful and profound as the internet, what the internet is and does, and how it connects people. So in the old days, we were all connected by music. I mean, it's still there, but it's not like it was. You know, it's that kind of background music now compared to how it was. Because when I was 20, music was at the heart of our Western culture. Now it's kind of just rather dull, polished, commercial pop music. It's the sound of money and soulless. Yeah, I mean, it's not supposed to be like this. Kids are supposed to complain at their parents for their shit music, you know, but I'm sorry, it's the other way around now. I'm sorry, but it is.
Kabina 1 nahoru. První patro. Dveře se otvírají.
INXS were a kind of post-punk Australian new wave artist formed in the late 70s, I think. But it wasn't until 1988 when they got really massive. I vividly remember it because I was at school and they released I Need You Tonight. It made such a big impact. We were all talking about it at school. And it had a really unique sound. It was funky and it was naughty. And it's slightly weird sounding, but it had a very unique flavour which made you sit up and take notice of it. And it was this massive, massive hit for them. Really launched them into the big time. I mean, INXS really came up with 3 other bands in that period: U2, REM, Depeche Mode, and INXS were the 4th. You know, by the end of the 80s, they were all massive stadium-filling bands. Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Bizarre. Considering they all started off kind of as alternative bands, you know. By 1990, they were all playing massive stadiums and selling lots of tickets. And extremely commercially successful, all 4 of them. And, you know, the poster boys of MTV. I mean, it's essentially what they were. U2, REM, Depeche Mode, INXS, the poster boys of MTV and VH1, and of that decade or more. You know, not including the heavy metal acts or the hard rock acts, you know, like Guns N' Roses and Metallica, who were just as big, but they were in a slightly different category. So, what's this? 3 babies. Three babies with, of course, 3 babies with barcodes in their heads. So, yeah, of course. So, one of the other shots from the video is just round here. And it's a shot where they walk around a corner and head up the side of the bridge. And it's shot at night. But this is the location here. Interesting. Quite amusing, this shot as well, actually, because the video is obviously highly choreographed in collaboration with the authorities, shall we say, the police. So as they come round this corner here, there's a couple of policemen at the top of this ramp here, and they were obviously only allowed to film in this little section here. And when they go past the boundary, the policemen come stomping down to stop the band from going any further. And you can actually see them in the video shot. One of the policemen comes marching down saying, "Halt, no more, no further." But this is the place, this is where the shot is Camera follows Michael around here. Around here, and the band are in front of him. And they walk up there. And just there where my finger is pointing is where the policeman is stood. So Michael is actually being filmed from behind, so the camera's following him around here. Comes around. Just there. It's at night though, so it might be worth coming back and filming again later. So they get to about here and then they are stopped by the police. But later on, at the end of the video, they do the shot again and the police aren't there. So they must have got permission during the day. But that wasn't the actual location I wanted to show you at this point. That's round here somewhere. Somewhere around here is Prague's narrowest street as well, which I should have a look for in a bit. It's so narrow that it has a traffic light system. So one line of people at a time kind of thing. Okay, so the next location is just down here. Okay, so here we are. Very much unchanged from 1987. Looks exactly like it does in the video. So in the video, you know, the orchestra's down here, sitting on chairs here, and Michael's loitering around these bushes over here. Well, they were bushes in those days, but not now, but it's still there. Basically me doing a recreation of Michael loitering amongst the bushes. So that was that shot there. I was hoping to get the sound of swans on the lake and not a leaf blower, but you can't get everything you want in life. So, on to the next one. That was good. Nice. The guy with the leaf blower gave it loads of extra atmosphere. So that was nice. So I believe these steps are a later 18th or 19th century addition to the 14th century bridge. These weren't here originally. Wow. Wow. See, they don't really go together at all, but at the same time they do. Old and new together when it works is a great thing to see. Some people will hate this, but sometimes architecture has to be aggressive and say, you got a problem? So there is a shot of the band walking past the astronomical clock, which I will attempt to replicate in some regard, but nothing flash. chaos by the astronomical clock, so I didn't linger. This main square of the old town, when I walked through it yesterday, there wasn't a single Christmas market stall to be seen, and then overnight all of them arrived, all of them, like dozens of them, and of course it looks a mess. He must have been near the river. He could detect its powerful mutter. In front of a little gate in a thick wall covered with Hebrew characters, he realised that he was in the ghetto. Over the wall stretched the branches of a sweet-smelling willow. Through the gate he could make out big brown stones lying among the weeds. It was the old Jewish cemetery of Prague. So, when the old Jewish ghetto, coming up to the next location, just around here. Up there is where Michael is stomping through the graveyard, and one of the other band members, Kurt, I think, is it? He's playing a saxophone as he stomped by. So these little shops here weren't here in 1987. Just these little stalls here. If I'm being honest, it's a bit of a shame that they are here now. That lamp post there is actually in the first shot of the promo. And it overlooks the back entrance to the Jewish cemetery there. And in the shot there's a policeman keeping watch. So, I don't know if I'll be able to get into the cemetery or not, but I'll try. The day was still overcast, but the sun glowed behind the clouds. Though still a little weak, Mersol felt better. Living this way in his own presence took time on its most extreme dimensions, and each hour seemed to contain a world. So, I did not go into the Jewish graveyard. I would have happily bought a ticket to get in, but just as I arrived at the entrance, there was a huge queue to get in, which hadn't been there 30 minutes earlier, 20 minutes earlier. I think between the hours of 7:30 and 10:30, you can do things in Prague quite easily without too many tourists hanging around. But after 10:30, it becomes a beehive of activity. So now I'm just heading up to the castle, just up there. The important thing was to avoid crises like the one yesterday. It would be best to do his sightseeing methodically. Monasteries and Baroque churches, museums and the old parts of the city. Nothing was omitted. As much as I would have liked to have seen where Michael Hutchence was stomping around the Jewish graveyard, unfortunately not possible. I also think that even though you can buy tickets to get in and have a good look around, that section of the cemetery is cordoned off with some rope, so from what I could tell anyway, so it might not have been worthwhile. It might be worthwhile tomorrow though, for another subject, and if I can get there early enough and get in there in time, I have come across the bridge from Old Town back into Lesser Town, and it is already much improved. As much as I felt that the Old Town was filled with architectural wonders, I actually preferred the charm of the old cobbled streets and baroque buildings of the Lesser Town. So, keeping with the musical theme of this film, Lesser Town, Melostrama, is actually where Beethoven and Mozart used to kind of hang around when they were staying here. Easy to see why. Prague, obviously, one of classical music's great capitals, great centres. Not just with their own composers like Leo Janáček, but as I just said, Beethoven was here a lot, Mozart was here. In fact, when Amadeus was filmed, they filmed it here in Prague and not Vienna, because Prague had maintained its old worldly charm and was more like how Vienna used to be. So I am just coming up to the start of one of the great thoroughfares up into the castle, and it's, I think, pretty much the last location where that video promo was shot. So there's a lot of government buildings around here. I'm obviously in the government quarter. Lost in the government quarter. I seem to have taken a wrong turn. I'm back on the right path. And up here, strangely, there seems to be a bust of Winston Churchill. Don't think there's a bust of Chamberlain. I feel like I'm hiking. So in the video, the bass player is standing right here. And then the camera pans back and comes up here a little. And this is where I was yesterday, although I was careful not to film the bits in the music video. But there's some shots down there, is where they're all stood by the wall, which is now a Starbucks. But we'll go and stand there. So just here in front, where these umbrellas are, is where the band members are stood. Just in here. The camera cranes up from around here somewhere and reveals a view of Prague. Well, they're stood right here. Right here. And it looks remarkably the same, exactly the same actually. Hasn't changed a bit. So I'm now heading back down towards Lesser Town, as I think it's about time. I should get some lunch really. It's after lunch now. Mirsol turned the corner and again recognised the smell of cucumbers, and with the smell his suffering. That day was the same as those which followed. Mirsol got up late, visited monasteries and churches, sought refuge in their fragrance of crypts and incense, and then, back in the daylight, confronted his secret fears at every corner. Where a cucumber seller was invariably posted, it was through this odour that he saw the museums and discovered the mystery and the profusion of the Baroque genius which filled Prague, with its gold magnificence. The altars which glowed softly in the darkness seemed borrowed from the coppery sky, the misty sunlight so fragrant over the city, the glistening spirals and scrolls, the elaborate setting that looked as if it were cut out of gold paper, so touching in its resemblance to the creches made for children at Christmas. The grandiose and grotesque Baroque perspectives affected Mirsol as a kind of infantile, feverish, overblown romanticism by which men protect themselves against their own demons. The god worshipped here was the god man fears and honours, not the god who laughs with man before the warm frolic in the sea and the sun. Emerging from the faint fragrance of dust and extinction, which reigned under the dim vaults, Mirsol felt he had no country. So that colourful wall back there was the John Lennon Memorial Wall. Another icon, singer-songwriter, who left us far, far, far too soon. Michael Hutchence also left us far too soon, and he died when he took his own life in a Sydney hotel room at the age of 37, I think, in the year 1997. Pretty much 10 years after he shot this video in November 1987. And I finished the walk where I started, pretty much. Although I'm not finished walking for the day, I have some other things to do, but in terms of video location hunting, this is it, I think. And it's a nice place to end it. I mean, a lot of people go on about what a waste it is when someone dies that young, and it is a waste. It's very sad. It's a waste of time that a life can afford you, all the possibilities. It's just very hard to articulate. When someone dies young, it's never a happy death, like the novel says. In 1992, I think it was, whilst in Copenhagen, he had a bit of a scuffle with a taxi driver where he landed badly and hit his head on the curb, suffering quite a bad brain injury, severing some important nerves, resulting in him losing his taste. Now, I can tell you from experience that losing your sense of taste is a lot worse than it sounds. I lost my sense of taste for 8 weeks when I was ill. And it's not a case of you losing your taste. That doesn't sound too bad on the surface. But what actually happens is it alters the sense of your taste to the point where everything you put in your mouth tastes stale or off, or way past its sale-by date, or just rotten. It tastes like shit, basically. Everything you put in your mouth tastes like shit. And I can tell you that after 8 weeks, I was saying to my mother, I can't live like this, Mum. If this is the way it's going to be, I can't live like this. So if you've lost your sense of taste like that, you are on a long road to quite severe depression. So 1992, 1997, 5 years he was living with that. I think Michael must have been an incredibly strong person to live with that, along with all the other business he was having to deal with. It all just got a little bit too much for him, I think. But I think we're all trying to die well at the end of the day. And I think, Michael wrote a 1,000-year song, co-wrote a 1,000-year song. He left a body of work behind which is obviously going to endure as an example of late 20th century music. If it's a happy ending, then it's the fact that he just this last year became a grandfather because his daughter had a baby. That is a happy ending if such a thing is possible under the circumstances. Thousand-year song, grandchild. It's not bad, is it? It's not bad. It's not a wasted life at all. Far from it. I think when you're that famous, you live several lifespans. So even though he was only 37, he lived more in those 37 years than hundreds of other people might do combined, Not get cold. In the pounding of his feverish blood, though it failed to reach the limits of his body, he understood that such weakness would not be his. For he had played his part, fashioned his role, perfected man's one duty, which is only to be happy. Not for long, no doubt. He had destroyed the obstacle, and this inner brother he had engendered in himself. His body had served him faithfully and opened him to the world. But at the same time, it lived a life of its own, detached from the man it represented. For those few years it had passed through a slow decomposition. Now it had completed its trajectory and was ready to leave Mersol to restore him to the world. Conscious, he must be conscious without deception, without cowardice, alone, face to face, at grips with his body, eyes open upon death. Not love, not landscape, nothing but an infinite waste of solitude and happiness in which Mersol was playing his last cards. What did it matter if he existed for 1 or for 20 years? Happiness was the fact that he had existed at all.